Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the DIY Hero's Journey panel here at Forcefest 2020. My name is Dominic Jones, and I host a podcast called the Star Wars Underworld. And what we're doing here today is we're going to be talking about Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, as he first laid out in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and its relationship with Star Wars, while also exploring how these two influences were the tools that helped one of our panelists today find an audience with his music. We'll be showing how these tools can be used to help any artistic creator in fandom or beyond, and how it will help their creation connect to others more successfully. Every person is on their own hero's journey, whether they realize it or not. So without further ado, let me introduce the people that will be joining us on this hero's journey here today. First up, from the music groups F105 and The Souls, we have Din.
I see here in our show outline that it says Din says something profound to introduce himself. All I got to say is Din Djarin stole my Google search fire, but I am the original Din.
Yeah, the original Din, the OD. That doesn't sound good. And also joining us today, we have a cosplayer extraordinaire and one of the guys behind the Order 416 Costume Club. We've got Kareem.
Hello, Galaxy. I am Kareem, and we are all one with the Force, and the Force is with us, and I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you here. We're thrilled to have everybody here listening and watching us here today at Forcefest. And of course, we want to thank you guys for being here, and we want to thank everybody involved in Forcefest for giving us this platform. Now, Forcefest is not just about celebrating Star Wars, it's also about giving back. And with that in mind, Forcefest is raising money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Your donations today and tomorrow will directly fund wishes for critically ill children. You can donate. There will be a link in our live chat up on the left-hand side of your screen. Or you can make a donation using the Get Vocal V-Coin by clicking the blue diamond on the upper right-hand side of your screen. Get Vocal are, of course, our wonderful hosts for this virtual convention, and they will be matching 33% of all donations made through the V-Coin. So I think that's the best way to do it. So go make a donation through the Get Vocal V-Coin again. That's the blue diamond to make your donation. All right, let's get to the discussion of the hero's journey. Din, why don't you start us off by telling us why you wanted to do this panel today?
Well, okay, so, hey, that's not in the outline. I don't have an answer prepared. The reason why I want to do this panel is essentially that, I had been studying the hero's journey all my life just because I found it fascinating and I found Star Wars fascinating. And then after making 4 albums that really I had a hard time finding an audience, one of them did sort of become a college radio hit in Canada, but that's another thing. But in terms of breaking out to people and connecting with people, I felt like I really wasn't. And then it occurred to me that George Lucas said, well, I just wanted to see if, as an experiment, if it worked, and so he rewrote the script to A New Hope, the second draft with the steps included. And I love George's willingness to experiment, and obviously we know how that turned out. So I just thought, why don't I start writing songs with all this stuff that I know so much about that I didn't realize would be useful, or that I think I know a lot about. And then lo and behold, though that first song that I did connected to, pretty multi-country, I guess you could say small global audience, small but real, and significant global audience in fandom, and also happened to be the first couple of songs that did well on radio, which was unrelated to Star Wars. So I really want to share, as Joseph Campbell, I pulled up a quote today where, Joseph Campbell was talking about the symbolic language. Here, I'll read the quote. "It is the purpose of this book, Hero with a Thousand Faces, to uncover some of the truths disguised for us under the figures of religion and mythology. The old teachers knew what they were saying. Once we learn to read again their symbolic language, it requires no more than the talent of an anthologist to let their teaching be heard." So really what he's saying is, here's the information. It works. If you use it, your message will be heard. And it did. So I want to show other people that in a twofold way. If you're in tune to your hero's journey that's going on in your life, and it's always going on, and everyone is going through it, if you tune into that, you can, in a personal way, use that as motivation for what you're doing in life. And if that happens to be also creating, then you could use those symbols in your creation, because it works. It worked for George Lucas. You know, Star Wars, as he said, was autobiographical. So he basically made an autobiographical 6-movie saga that used these symbols to tell his story, and it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's get to the first song that we're going to talk about. And that is Sand in the Sun. This was by your group, The Souls. Tell us about this song a little bit first.
Well, there was a George Lucas quote that hit me a long time ago. The role of the artist is to find the common threads that make all people one. And which is something that Joseph Campbell said. The whole point of the journey is every hero returns to show their community they are one. Sand in the Sun was my first time, I think, using a metaphor for that oneness. Sand in the sun being like all the grains of sand in the desert. Obviously, the dune, this desert would be one thing of sand, and but also the Big Bang. So all particles of matter were condensed into something smaller than a pin and exploded out into the universe as we know it. And that matter is all really one, which is, something that Einstein was on about. And so that song also happened to be, even though I was sort of kind of just using the end point of the journey, which is that the hero shows their community that they're one. It was also my first time using the call to adventure, and I didn't realize I was doing it. So we could play that clip.
I'll play the clip? Okay. Let's do that. Oh, sorry. Hold on.
When you call, will I come? Walk in the town on the run. When I needed space, she kicked me out. All I think and feel, you hear me shout. All sand in the sun.
Sand in the Sun.
Yeah, so that was from the Souls LP CD release party at the Cadillac Lounge in Parkdale, Toronto. That was a great show, but the first lines of the song are, "When you call, will I come? I'm walking the town on the run." I just realized I was also kind of doing an homage to, I think, Where the Streets Have No Name by U2. I want to run, I want to hide, that kind of thing. But I always thought I love U2's lyrics, but I thought that was presented a little cliche, and I wanted to present the same kind of thing, maybe a little more poetically, if I dare say that. Yeah. And, but the only thing was, part of my internal sort of struggle that I had with the Souls was that I felt like I was really getting all the spiritual themes, and I was presenting them on point. I'd been studying all this stuff like Campbell from all over the world for decades, a decade and a half by this point of this song, which I first started to write in 2014, though it came out 2016. But I always felt in my gut that the Souls was a little heavy in its presentation of the material. So and I felt like this song, I think it's beautiful, and some other people do. do too, but I always felt like it was like a little bit heavy and maybe a little too like U2's trick. And it was my sense that I wanted to start something new with a like maybe a bit more of a fun, exciting name as a band name, and also use the same spiritual themes but direct them in a more entertaining and exciting way like Star Wars. So Sand in the Sun, even though I loved it, made me start to think that I needed to try a different direction to have these songs connect to people.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of my favorite Soul songs that you guys did. And I think it's because, like you're saying, it is the beginning of the call to adventure. And as we're going to talk about with a couple more of the songs, this is perhaps the most universal step in the journey, right? Everybody has had the call, right? That's what begins every part of the story. You don't have movies, books, comics, myth, any of this if the characters say, I'm going to stay on my uncle's farm. I'll be fine if I just stay on my uncle's farm. Then you don't have a story. And everybody in their life, as I think we'll talk about with the next song some more, has been called on an adventure of some kind. And maybe it's not to go join the Rebel Alliance per se, but certainly this can apply to everything, no matter how big or how small. Every journey has a first step, to borrow a phrase from the Phantom Menace trailer from way back in 1998, I guess.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice. So I have a question for you then, because
Sure.
I'm aware that you're reading Hero with 1,000 Faces for the first time.
Yeah, I finished it. Yeah.
Now. So good work.
I did all my homework on the panel.
So, what would Joseph Campbell say is the indication that how do you know what your call is? What's his famous phrase?
His famous phrase, I believe, and I might be cheating from the notes here, it's follow your bliss.
Yeah. So I think the one thing is that's why everyone's on the journey, because everyone knows somewhere, and they may have forgot it by the time they're a young adult, because the world seems to be pretty designed to quell that fire within you and to knock it out of you. Like, don't do what you love, go into math. Not that there's anything wrong with math.
If math
is great. The universe loves
yeah.
Hey, the language of the universe is math and geometry, so I'm not knocking that. But what I mean is that by the kids know what they love, and by the time you're an adult, you might have had that knocked out of you. But and then you would run into maybe all sorts of psychological problems, which Carl Jung was on about. That if you're not following your bliss, the psychoanalyst Carl Jung,
I think
was after Freud. If you're not following your bliss, then you won't be a fulfilled, happy person. So what your bliss is by what you really loved, I think, when you were young.
Yeah.
And if you listen to that, then you know what the call is, and then you choose to follow it or not.
Yeah, and to sort of bring it back to Star Wars, just sort of, you talk about what you love when you're a little kid versus what you love versus how you feel when you're a little bit older. And I think we can actually look at Star Wars and the beginning of some of the journeys that the characters go on and see a little bit of an example of this play out. In A New Hope, right, when Obi-Wan says to Luke, you must learn the ways of the fullest and come with me to Alderaan. Luke's reaction is, I can't go. I have to stay here. I've got work to do. I've got to work on the farm. My uncle's going to kill me. He has all of these sort of superficial reasons not to accept the call. His refusal of the call is kind of a little bit more, it's what you're saying. He's trying to do what he thinks is smart, what he thinks society on Tatooine wants him to do, which is to just be a moisture farmer. Whereas if you look in Phantom Menace, when Anakin's first call in that movie, to run to go in the Boonta Eve Classic, to do the pod race on behalf of Padme and Qui-Gon and everybody, he's the one who brings that up because that's what he loves doing. He says to Shmi, I love racing. This is what I'm supposed to do. And his refusal of the call in that way is almost not even there. It's almost like other people try and stop him from doing that. But he knows in that moment what he loves is racing. He loves going fast because he's still a little kid. He doesn't have those inhibitions that come with you as you get older, where you think, oh, I can't, I can't really be a pod racer anymore. I have to, I just got to work in the shop and repair droids and do all that sort of thing. But because he's a little kid, he's just like, yeah, pod racing, let's go. Whereas Luke has the sort of like, I got to work. I can't, it's not that I like the Empire. I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it right now. Luke tries to talk himself out of doing it, whereas other people try and talk Anakin out of doing it, if that makes any sense.
No, that does. I've never thought of it that way. That, yeah, of course. I think probably that's intentional by George Lucas, because that's universal wisdom in all the mythologies. Like, that's why even Jesus says, be like children, because you know what's right. You know what you love. You know what joy is. You know that people should be friendly. You know everything that you need to know, really, when you're a kid. And so, yeah, I've never thought of it that way. So thanks for pointing that out. And for anyone that might be watching this, I think as soon as you decide to follow the Blisson side, you're on the journey. Whether creating a podcast, writing a song or a book, or making a film, fan film, painting, whatever. And some people won't start because they'll feel like, if you've been procrastinating or you've spent years or however much time not doing it, you think, I might as well not do it anyway because I haven't. But Joseph Campbell says, not all who hesitate are lost. The psyche has many secrets in reserve, and these are not disclosed unless required. So really, I think you're required to answer the call once you decide to go on the journey. And then, if you just start one day, you're going to find everything you need inside to do it.
Yeah. Jonathan in our live chat says, truly wonderful the mind of a child is. And I think that just hammers home the point that you're making here. All right, let's move on to the next song.
That Jonathan, he's a smart kid.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, yes.
I foresee he will become a great and powerful Jedi.
Yes, absolutely. So let's transition to the next song, which is off of the first F-105 record. It's called Rebel Girl. So Dan, tell us about this song.
Okay, Rebel Girl was so I had the one success in fandom with the first song, and then I thought, okay, this is an era where we're getting movies like The Force Awakens with Rey and Rogue One with Jyn, and all of a sudden, my 11-year-old niece, Lily, was a Rey fan and a Star Wars fan, and we could bond over Star Wars. So then I gave myself the challenge to write a song that she would like. And because I seem to write, the first song was maybe, a lot of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s in fandom liked the first song, but I was like, can I write a song that maybe the younger generation and new female fans?
All right, and we've got a clip from Rebel Girl.
The Empire's flags are all around. It's easier to keep her head down. She looks at you strange when you say this hope. That's how rebellions work, don't you know?
Nice.
Yeah. So I think one of the big sort of takeaways from Rebel Girl, and it's what you're talking about here, about you're trying to write a song for that next generation, and it ties back to what we were talking about with Sand in the Sun about the first the first step, the call to adventure, and I think because using the song, you make a lot of allusions to Jyn and Rey for Force Awakens and Rogue One, and it's just a reminder that of how universal these steps are, and that every generation has a legend. Every generation goes on their version of it. And so where a song like Sand in the Sun might appeal to fans who were there for the original trilogy and can relate to that sort of beginning, Rebel Girl really taps into the energy of the newer films and those calls to adventures that Rey in Force Awakens and Rogue One, whether it's BB-8 and Finn showing up on Jakku, or K2 busting her out of the turbo tank on Wobani at the beginning, and these calls to adventures to go out there. Every story begins kind of the same way with that call, and it's every generation needs their version of it. Every generation needs a myth that speaks to them, whether that's a song like Rebel Girl or a movie like The Force Awakens.
Yeah, I love that you said the song captures the energy of the movies, because that's what I was really hoping to do, was to make something fun and kinetic. Especially Force Awakens is really kinetic, and I chose a dancey beat for that song and a groovy bass line, because I figured if, to get younger people to like something, maybe it should be a little more dancey, and so step 4 is also represented in the song, I think, in the line that says breaking through. Yeah. It's, kinetic. It's, usually I take an intellectual approach in lyrics, but that one's very, very kinetic. Like, it's just all about the way that feels, that you're breaking through the barrier and crossing, I think, the threshold.
Yeah, I think we have a...
And it's also step 6, road to trials, that there's things that will stop you from getting.
Absolutely. I think we have that clip as well.
Rebel girl, they know you. It's gonna be your time. Breaking through. We're breaking through. We're breaking through.
Yes.
Peter says, "Cool music video, thanks." And Chris said, "I love Rebel Girl," so thank you. There's really not much. I think that song speaks for itself. I know that it was, I was really into Rogue One at the time, so the first verse starts with that. And we have with us today Bodhi Rook from the Rogue One team.
Thank you for making that music video. I love that music video. It's got Rogue One. It ends with Rey. That's what I'm all about. So that's a really great music video. The lyrics are really powerful. And I'm excited to be here.
Thank you.
My name is Kareem from Toronto Star Wars cosplay group Order 416. And I'm dressed as Bodhi Rook today because I felt a very strong call to adventure to portray this character, which is different from the calls that I feel to cosplay other characters. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So my call to portray Bodhi Rook came as an actual physical phone call from a friend, from Dan, from Order 416. Shout outs to Dan the Man, Kane and Jarvis. So they released it.
For those that don't know, Dan is like the Jade in Dream Silent.
Dan and Jay and Silent Kebab.
You two are so fun.
Thanks.
You're the most fun people.
Shout out to the Toronto community. We're also fun. And so Order 416 is about empowering cosplayers to feel welcome, empowering people to feel brave to go out there and do things, even if you're alone. Sometimes you might want to go to a convention and cosplay, but not have anyone else to cosplay with. So that's how Dan and Reno got started. They were just a group of friends like, hey, let's just hang out with each other and find other people. And so I met them at a convention and we hit it off. And so then there's a Rogue One behind the scenes image that came out years later. And we didn't know any context, but I'm like, oh my God, there's a brown guy. There's a brown guy with a beard and long hair. Like, that's different. You know, it's nice to see diversity, representation. And so instantly I was a little hesitant. I'm like, okay, what if it's a character that I don't jive with. I don't necessarily want to get attached to this character. I don't know who they are. And suffice it to say, people of color don't always get the best representation. If I see myself on screen, maybe it's because I'm playing a character that's called a terrorist. That's just how we get represented sometimes. Shoutouts to airports, shoutouts to airport security and random searches. I'll come back to that. However, this character, Bodhi Rook, is so wonderful to me. And just to echo something you mentioned earlier, Dominic, the call to adventure that Joseph Campbell called Follow Your Bliss. Bodhi Rook has that line in Rogue One that I just remembered. When he's talking about Galen Erso speaking to him, he says, "Oh, hey, Jin, I met your dad," so to speak. And he said, "If I listen to my heart, I can make things right." So that's right out of the hero's journey, that Bodhi Rook had that experience in the story to defect from the Empire, to know what the right thing to do is, and then to follow through. And so Galen was his call.
Gave him the call.
Dan was my call. And I also feel a little bit of societal responsibility to portray Bodhi Rook. And so socially, it's easy because I look the part. I already have brown skin and a beard, so it's not a stretch for me. Second is the cultural call that I feel. As much as I'm portraying Bodhi Rook right now, I'm happy to be bringing attention to Riz Ahmed. Shoutouts to Rizwan Ahmed. Riz Ahmed is so vocal about important issues. He's a Muslim, he's South Asian, he's Pakistani British, just like I'm Indian Canadian, so he's a child of two worlds. He's living in two worlds, just like I am, just like many people are. We have a lot of different cultural backgrounds. So when I portray Bodhi Rook, I feel like I'm representing Riz Ahmed, I'm representing the people of color in the Western world. And then, of course, go ahead.
Would you say that as you feel a call to, represent your community?
I would rather be wearing a different cosplay, which I will reveal later, right after this. But when I've spoken at some panels at New York Comic Con called Salam Fandom, and I wanted to wear my Kamala Khan costume because that's another Muslim character. So I wore that, but underneath my Bodhi Rook cosplay, because I feel responsible. Like, if Bodhi Rook is a character that exists in the popular culture, it needs to be represented. And Bodhi Rook is actually not that well represented. He's not on the Blu-ray. Riz Ahmed's name is not on the Blu-ray or the DVD. He's not on a lot of merchandise.
Yeah, he's the only character from Rogue One. He's the only one of that main cast that didn't get a Hasbro Black Series figure.
What's up?
It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
Okay, yeah, there's something going on here, like too many or make it obvious. So
so that's why I represent Bodhi as much as I can. And there was a big mural at Star Wars Celebration in Chicago last year. Maybe some of you remember. It was massive. It took up most of the hall.
Mm-hmm. It was they
even had Grand Admiral Thrawn as live action.
Right.
But they didn't have Bodhi Rook. They had the entire Rogue One cast. They have obscure characters like Thrawn, but still no Bodhi Rook. And here's the kicker. Riz Ahmed was supposed to be at New York Comic Con, Chicago Star Wars Celebration. He has residence in New York. Riz Ahmed was not allowed to come into the United States because Islamophobia is a real problem. Families are being torn apart because of it. Riz Ahmed is on the cover of magazines, but not allowed on the planes that they serve them in. Riz Ahmed is a hero. He represents problems that if he's a celebrity and gets treated this way, imagine how the regular people get treated. All right. So when I cosplay Bodhi Rook, I'm cosplaying Riz Ahmed. I'm cosplaying every single person of color that gets the side end of the stick. That's not a saying that gets shafted. So obviously it's something I'm very passionate about. And go ahead.
Okay. So
yes.
I have two questions for you. One would be, have you had any obstacles to playing Bodhi? Did you have any?
No, not me personally,
scenarios?
but I've heard of other Bodhi books. My friend Jana, who was a huge support, she's a member of the Rebel Legion. She helped me put this together. She inspires me. She's a white woman who cosplays Bodhi Rook because she feels that Bodhi Rook needs more attention. So shout outs to Jana who cosplay. You can find her on Instagram. I'll post some of her stuff. She has the Bodhi Rook backpack, the cable backpack that he wears on Scarif. And so she's had some problems getting that through security sometimes. Personally, I wouldn't even risk it. If I'm a brown man showing up with a backpack that's made of metal cables hanging out of it, I don't need to attract that much attention to myself. And honestly, I just like being comfortable, so I just won't wear the backpack. And I can't even make one. So, but other than that, no, I haven't had any problems. But that's because I know that I got to play it safe.
And I like that you take these risks on your journey and you don't play things safe. So that brings me to my next question was that we were having dinner recently, and you were talking about how even though you felt that really strong call to Bodhi, you felt an even stronger call to another recent character in Star Wars, someone who you said, correct me if I get this wrong, you felt personally more like on the inside.
Thank you for bringing that up.
And were you just one more question? Were you a little scared, or did you have
Zero
trepidation?
So to answer to give your question some framework, I'm gonna transform. I'm gonna pull the master switch just to make a Rogue One pun. So I'm going to do a master switch into a different character, and Din asked me if I had any apprehension cosplaying this character, and that's because it's not a brown man character, it's a white woman. But I'm cool with that. So while I'm undressing, you can guess who I am in the comments below.
And I should let people know that this.
Yeah, we got a couple of guesses. We got somebody guessing Hot Leia. Somebody else guessing the.
We are not halfway through the outline, by the way, guys.
Okay, we'll pick it up.
We have less than half an hour left. But I do want to say that I found it very interesting that you did this right before your 6-month journey, where you went alone to India, and you took this
cosplay with
you to India. What was that like?
I'll answer as quickly as I can, but gotcha. So
not quickly.
Mindfully is a great word. Mindfully is how I try to live my life. I've grown up as a Muslim in a Sufi Muslim exposure and environment, and spirituality is how I connect with Star Wars. The mysticism, the higher power, that I grew up with being a Sufi Muslim. It sounds a lot like the Force. So there's a picture of me in India, and what brought me into this is right after the Last Jedi. So, my fandom for Star Wars comes from spirituality. We greet each other in my faith by saying Ya Ali Madad, which literally means may the higher power be with you, which sounds a lot like may the Force be with you. So from a child, I was like, okay, Star Wars, it marries my faith and my fandom. I can live in this fandom and feel like a spiritual person, feel like a Muslim on my path. And I'm also a huge yogi. I love doing yoga. As an Ismaili Muslim, we are encouraged to meditate and to do a personal search, not just through our prayers and our external service to the world, to the physical world. We also have a responsibility to our spiritual selves. And this spiritual search, this meditation, is a lot easier to do if you can sit for 1 hour. And to sit for an hour is very difficult to meditate. So I've been doing yoga. And yoga comes from my breath awareness. And I love Star Wars music. I like waking up to Star Wars alarm clocks that are a theme song. It's the Force theme. And so I was looking for a Star Wars song that had maybe some narration of something cool. Fast forward to April 2017. It's the Last Jedi trailer at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando, and they're playing the Last Jedi trailer, and the first words of the trailer are breathe, just breathe. And so here I am. I'm 5 years into my 9-to-5 job. I've been doing yoga on the side, been wanting to make yoga more of a main thing for me rather than just on the side. And I hear Luke Skywalker say, breathe, just breathe. And that gave me the inspiration to go deeper into my yoga journey. I've been wanting to travel India or travel anywhere in the world and really dedicate myself to my spiritual search, to my physical growth, to my mental growth, really dive into it. And Ray had done the same thing. She jumped, she left Jakku, went to Octo, found her master, dedicated to her self-growth. And I hear Luke Skywalker say, breathe, just breathe. That's why I got this nose piercing, so I can remember to have awareness in my breath. Relax my jaw, relax my shoulders, have good posture, breathe deep, be at peace. And so I began my cosplay journey at the same time. And cosplaying is another adventure where I'm not just always at a convention, but I was sometimes I'm horseback riding just like Khal Drogo. And when I was doing that, one of my really supportive friends, she said, you know what, if you're going to India for 6 months, there's going to be a lot of really beautiful scenery. You should take a cosplay with you. And I was like, oh my God. And she's like, bring your Ray cosplay to I'm so grateful for her to put that idea in my head, because it's just a gray vest and some hair buns. And if I'm in the Himalayas, which I was doing meditation retreats in the Himalayas, I was dressed as Ray, and it was amazing. So much fun.
That's cool. That's really cool. That's actually a good segue into the next song, where we'll be talking about Ray's continued journey. Is there anything I'm trying to?
The next
let's move on
song
to
is
the next song.
Desert Planet. And how about we jump right to the first clip from it?
Your footprints on the desert plain have blown away, only you remain. I walk with you on the distant sands, we're nowhere near where we began. We're not solid on a barren coast. The desolation here is stark. There's nothing to see but who you are, surrounded by nothing but the dark. The emptiness, just let it come like a desert planet around us. Sun hits you with a violent wind. Light comes when we let darkness in.
Nice. I love that track.
Yeah, Desert Planet's one of my favorites. It's one we've featured on the Star Wars Underworld podcast on several occasions. So, give us the quick overview of Desert Planet and what you're going for with this song.
I think Desert Planet was really my way to follow up the first two Star Wars songs and continue it on the journey and move it into some further steps. So we got step 6, Road of Trials, literally walking symbolism. So the road, not easy to traverse, a desert of shifting sand, making it, symbolically making it hard to find the way through the path, the straight and narrow path that the hero needs to end up on. And, things like violent wind, all the elements making it really hard. I think it was also, a continuation of wanting people to feel like a lot of Star Wars music really literally talks about things happening in Star Wars, whether it's a parody or not. Not that, I don't love that stuff. I love Weird Al. But my thing was I wanted to continue making people feel like now we're building up like a catalog of songs that make you feel like you're in your hero's journey in the moment you're listening to it. So it's like a soundtrack to your journey. Then it moves into step 5, Belly of the Whale. And the cave is often interchangeable with the belly of the whale. Basically, it's, the symbol is we go through, or the heroes and the archetypes, and we go through periods in our lives where we're stripped of everything that makes us comfortable, that makes us think we know who we are. And sort of like now in COVID, we enter these cave situations where we're stripped of everything. When we're stripped of everything, we really have nothing to see but who we are on the inside. So I wanted this song to really capture that. And, that was Jonah and the whale. Jonah refuses his call, so God puts him in the whale, thereby forcing him to see only what was on the inside. Just a side note, it was written a year before The Last Jedi. So the line, "You walk alone on a barren coast into the cave of who you are." Yeah, I had no idea that
all this is Force Wilson.
Yeah, it worked out quite nicely. I think we've got another clip from Desert Planet.
We walk alone on the barren coast, cave of who we are.
Actually, we already heard that part.
There's nowhere to go but into your soul, surrounded by nothing but the dark.
Yeah, so that was the bit you were just talking about, actually.
Yeah, it's the same in both verses, really. I guess I gave you this I gave you those 2 clips, so thanks for playing that. But yeah, there's nowhere to go but into your soul, surrounded by nothing but the dark. And one point I want to make before I see we have Matt here for a question, is that as I was saying earlier, the hero's journey is always personal, and as Kareem was showing too, that as a creator, Joseph Campbell says, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." So, if whatever you're afraid to do, that's where your treasure is probably gonna be. And for me, it was being afraid to really take a risk and try this whole new angle with songwriting, which was the hero's journey, and be really open about my geekdom. Coming from a sort of like college radio hipster music world.
Let me just add on to that really quickly, because I'll just speak for myself for just a second. That part, again, it speaks to my own life and my own little hero's journey with doing this thing, the Star Wars Underworld. Before I ever got involved with podcasting, I was always very shy. Lots of sort of anxiety is maybe not exactly the right word, but it probably describes it best. And the idea of getting up in front of people and talking about anything, whether I was passionate about it or not, was always a very big challenge. I loathed the days in school where I would have to give a presentation about anything, whether it was, science, math, history, whatever. I never wanted to do those. Those were always the worst days. If the presentation could be 15 minutes before the class ended, and I would spend hours and hours dreading it. But somewhere along the line, I started listening to Star Wars podcasts and wanted to, and I realized that this was something that I wanted to do. That was sort of my call, and it was a real challenge. I'll tell you, those first few Star Wars Underworlds, my co-host Chris is in our live chat, and he can attest to this, especially my first few episodes. We're not great. We're not great, but we've grown and evolved, and it's now something that I'm very proud of, and something that we've done a lot of. I think I don't want to speak, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I feel like we've done a lot of good stuff, and it's become something that we all can hang our hats on. And those early days, it was a real challenge to just say, all right, I'm going to sit down in front of a microphone and just ramble on about Star Wars like we're doing here. And so that was a real journey for myself. But let's get to we've got Matt here. Matt's going to jump on and actually ask in a question about Desert Planet. So Matt, welcome. Thank you for being here. What is your question?
Hey, everyone. Okay. So Dave reminds us we've got less than 15 minutes now. So we got to be...
I appreciate that your songs are not a parody, but a serious reflection. I do want to go a bit deeper with Jonah for a second. You mentioned him in the song, and in The Whale, he's stripped of his pretensions, and he's forced into a self-awareness of what is really for him a sense of ethnic superiority. His attitude that, those people over in Assyria, they could not possibly find the light. Who are they? And through that journey, he's finally able to share the light with them, with that people in another part of the world. Can you speak to your music in developing a kind of self-awareness of a hero reflection, self-awareness and recognizing your own privilege and biases, especially as a white dude, in society, in fandom, and in your commitment in particular to telling sharing the Indigenous story here in Canada?
That's a really great question. I could say that what I do, I think I just call loosely this process that I do hero reflection. So everything is reflection. That's how movies work, mythologies work. You're just reflecting off a hero, and you're asking, what would I do in that situation? I think when I watch Star Wars, this theme is especially to do with the Indigenous stuff. It's very Star Wars. The story we have is colonists, white colonists expand into lands that isn't theirs, from Europe to Canada or from Imperial City to Endor. We go into lands uninvited, thinking the other people are savage and have a lot to learn from us. And we try to give them the truth, the right politics and the right religion. If I'm reflecting off Star Wars, I'm actually have to realize that, and ask a serious question, maybe I'm actually part of the empire. It's the British colonial empire that put me here. And, the old myth, and we see it in the movies, the old myth is, and then we create all these problems, and then we make all these movies where, Indigenous people are presented in the old myth as, they need to be saved by the white man, or they need to be saved by a white man who acts and looks like them. So we have Dances with Wolves, all the way to Avatar, a white person. As much as I love those movies, Avatar is a white person pretending he's an Indigenous person and saving them. And for Star Wars fans, here's the mind-blowing thing. Ewoks are actually really subversive because they represent the new myth. They don't need the help of the white people. They actually help the rebels, and they save the rebels. So I think that subversively, George Lucas was actually, challenging that myth that's always been there in Hollywood. And I think I've tried to put that in my music seriously. I've spent, weeks and years. I've spent weeks on reserves, on blockades. I've spent years as an activist for Native issues. And, it's all about, I never go with a group saying I should go there and help. I'm part of a group that only goes where they're asked by Indigenous people. And then I started putting
which
that
is a great
in songs
song,
like
and people should definitely check out on YouTube. That's what I was told. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to move to the next song. I just have one more thing to say. So that's the story of movies. There was only one movie totally made by Indigenous people, from writer, director, actors, and craftspeople. That was, as of a few years ago, Atanajarat Fast Runner. So as far as fandom goes, in your question, Matt, we need to push for Indigenous-themed Star Wars movies, I think, by Indigenous directors like Taika Waititi. Yay.
Yeah. And Mando's kind of the first place. We're starting to see that a little bit with Taika, like you said, and with Julia Jones, who played Omera in episode 4. But that is, that's a first step, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. All right, let's go to the next song. The next song. I think we gotta keep it moving.
Play the clip or just go to the next song?
I would have loved to have played that clip because I love that song. And I will definitely recommend that everybody check it out on YouTube. Search for No Man's Land. But I think we got to keep it moving to the next song, which is To the Underworld. So you want to take us through this one, Dan?
Oh, of course. You want to make sure we have time.
That was not my intention, but it worked out.
This is more of the belly of the whale. This really came out of my COVID experience, which was spending 4 months isolated, and I used that to really look inside. And when you really do, I think you find a lot of stuff that you really realize you have to work on that you haven't. At least in my case, that's what all the myths show too. I realized To the Underworld, which is one of the songs from the next album, was, dealing in this kind of really, dark place. And I realized I wasn't really lyrically going for it. So if it's about the myth, in mythology, it's about, going, the dying to yourself and being reborn. And as Joseph Campbell says in step 10, apostasis, which this is the moving beyond the pairs of opposites, where you have to realize you have the dark and light in you, which is a very Star Wars theme. It is only when a man tames his own demons that he becomes king of himself or queen of herself, if not the world. Yeah, so I added those lyrics recently to really try to really search that out. And I sort of mashed I think if you're creating or writing from mythology, it's not just good to go to the hero's journey, but also to the actual sources. So I was studying the Egyptian Book of the Dead stuff, biblical resurrection, and the underworld stuff in Star Wars.
Like you said, we're getting into those final steps of the hero's journey with this song. Yeah.
I'm just going to play that clip really quick.
Go for it.
Like no intro or anything. Just because I think the whole point of what I'm trying to communicate people is if you're going to find the steps, can you hear that guitar? You really got to be honest with the stuff you're going through, and then use the symbols. So. Going down to weigh the heart, by the light it shines, and the dark it hides, to be raised back up in the circle of shedding skin, to begin again. So I'm really proud of those lyrics. I think they're kind of really haunting, and I can't wait to record it. We have only a few minutes left.
Then let's hit the final song.
I think that's
and this is called "We the Force." Tell us about it, and then we're actually going to hear the whole thing.
Oh, I should mention in terms of the whole journey, that's also step 15, crossing the return threshold, which is where you integrate this new wisdom into life. And then that sort of leads me on this mission to, trying to get to the ultimate point of the whole journey, which is We the Force, which is step 11, the ultimate boon, what Joseph Campbell calls the ultimate boon, the whole point of the journey.
Sorry. That was my fault. I had us all ready to go. I was going to be perfect timing, and I realized I'd left it on mute. So here we go. Here is "We the Force" by F105.
No worries.
We've been running for so long. Something happened, what went wrong? We are one in a force, guided you back to the source. I see light within us all. Together we rise, out we fall. We don't want tonight.
Let's stop it there, Dom, because it's time.
Makes the point.
That makes the point. That makes the point. I just want to read this Joseph Campbell quote where I just want to use his words instead of paraphrasing him. The great deed of the supreme hero is come to the knowledge of this unity and multiplicity and then make it known. So that's really what I'm trying to do through music in my little way. So even if it's fandom, I think anything that's going on in this world, whether it's divisiveness in fandom or wars between nations, or even something as ugly as racism, really comes, I think, from a really hurtful belief that's conditioned into people that people and the earth and anything is separate at all. Like even Einstein says, matter is one, nothing is separate, and it's an illusion. Those are his words. And I really feel like the boon that I found and the elixir that I'm returning to share is the knowledge that literally everything is one. And if you see someone else as you
Absolutely.
really can't
Absolutely.
hurt yourself.
So
Really
that is
right?
more or less going to do it for us here today on the DIY Heroes Journey panel here at Forcefest 2020. Thank you to everybody for listening and watching us live. Don't forget to make a donation to Make-A-Wish. Again, if you use the Get Vocal coin, which you click on the little blue diamond on the upper right-hand side of your screen, Get Vocal will match 33% of all of those donations. And you can also, if you're listening to this after the fact or watching this after the fact, just go to makeawish.org and make a donation there. Thank you to Din. Thank you for leading us through this great discussion today. Make sure you check out Din's music at f105music.com or by following him on social media at F105. And make sure you keep up with Kareem and all of the awesome cosplay and everything that he's doing. You can follow at Order416 on Instagram and at Kareem's Dreams on Instagram. And you can hear more from me on the Star Wars Underworld podcast each and every week. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our website, starwarsunderworld.com, breaking down all of the latest Star Wars news. We have a great show each and every week. That does it. Thank you again to the organizers of Forcefest. Thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Get Vocal. Go make a donation to Make-A-Wish. Din, you have one more thing to say? Yes.
George, I just really wanted to end on the George Lucas quote, but I didn't want to cut off Make-A-Wish. Did you finish Make-A-Wish? Okay. So, George Lucas said the point of, at Celebration 3, when he came out to introduce Revenge of the Sith, he said the point of Star Wars is to get on with your lives, to take that challenge, to leave your uncle's moisture farm and get into that world and save the universe. And I just think that, one of the ways that we can save
absolutely.
things
so thank you, everybody.
More people
and may the Force Fest be with you.